Throughout history, numerous prisoners deemed highly dangerous have been released back into society, often sparking debates about justice, rehabilitation, and public safety. One such individual is Patrick McKay, a British serial killer active in the 1970s. Diagnosed as a psychopath at 15, McKay was convicted of 3 counts of manslaughter and suspected in several other murders. Despite his violent past, McKay became eligible for parole in 1995 after serving his minimum 20-year term. Concerns about his potential release have persisted, with former Dartford MP Gareth Johnson voicing objections, emphasizing the potential risk to public safety. Another notable case is that of Clyde Thompson, once labeled the meanest man in Texas. Convicted of multiple murders in the 1920s and 1930s, Thompson's violent behavior in prison led to additional life sentences. However, during solitary confinement, he experienced a profound personal transformation, embracing religion and education. His rehabilitation was so significant that he was eventually paroled, spending his remaining years as a preacher and counselor, exemplifying the potential for change even in the most hardened individuals. Sidney Cook, a member of the notorious Dirty Dozen gang in the UK, was convicted in the 1980s for the abduction, sexual assault, and murder of young boys. Initially sentenced to 16 years, Cook was released after serving 9, only to be rearrested for further offenses. His case highlighted significant flaws in the parole system, leading to public outcry and reforms to prevent similar occurrences. Cook's actions and the subsequent failures in monitoring him underscored the challenges in balancing rehabilitation efforts with public safety concerns. The case of Reinhard Sinaga, the UK's most prolific rapist, also raises questions about prisoner release. Sinaga was convicted of assaulting dozens of men, with estimates suggesting he had over 200 victims. Serving a life sentence with a minimum term of 40 years, discussions have emerged about his potential repatriation to Indonesia. Such a move could lead to severe challenges for Sinaga, given Indonesia's prison conditions and societal attitudes towards sexual offenders, sparking debates about international prisoner transfers and human rights considerations. Haroon al-Afghani, an Afghan citizen, was detained at Guantanamo Bay for 15 years without formal charges. Accused of being an al-Qaeda courier and commander, his detention without trial drew criticism from human rights organizations. In 2022, he was released and repatriated to Afghanistan. His case underscores the complexities of detaining individuals without due process and the challenges faced upon their release after prolonged incarceration without conviction. The phenomenon of releasing dangerous prisoners isn't confined to a single region or era. Globally, justice systems grapple with the dilemma of balancing the potential for rehabilitation against the risk to public safety. In some instances, individuals convicted of heinous crimes have shown genuine remorse and transformation, leading to successful reintegration into society. However, other cases have resulted in recidivism, sometimes with tragic outcomes. For example, the case of Jack Unterweger, an Austrian serial killer, illustrates the potential pitfalls of premature release. Convicted of murder in 1974, Unterweger was released in 1990 after portraying himself as a reformed man. However, he went on to commit several more murders before being apprehended again, highlighting the challenges in assessing true rehabilitation. Conversely, Stanley Tookie Williams, co-founder of the Crips gang in Los Angeles, underwent a significant transformation while on death row. He became an anti-gang activist and authored children's books warning against gang involvement. Despite his efforts and global campaigns for clemency, Williams was executed in 2005, raising debates about redemption and the death penalty. The release of political prisoners also presents unique challenges. Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, emerged to lead South Africa out of apartheid, exemplifying positive change. However, not all political prisoners advocate peaceful reforms upon release, and some may resort to violence, complicating international relations and domestic stability. In the United States, the closure of mental health institutions in the latter half of the 20th century led to the release of individuals with severe mental illnesses, some of whom had violent tendencies. Without adequate support systems, this shift contributed to increased homelessness and incarceration rates, highlighting the need for comprehensive mental health care in discussions about prisoner release. Technological advancements have also influenced the monitoring of released prisoners. Electronic tagging and GPS tracking provide authorities with tools to supervise high-risk individuals. However, these measures raise ethical questions about privacy and the potential for technological failures, necessitating a balance between security and civil liberties. Public perception plays a crucial role in the discourse surrounding the release of dangerous prisoners. High-profile cases often lead to media sensationalism, which can sway public opinion and, subsequently, policy decisions. While public safety remains paramount, it's essential to base decisions on empirical evidence and individualized assessments rather than generalized fear. The role of restorative justice in the context of releasing dangerous prisoners is also worth considering. This approach emphasizes repairing the harm caused by criminal behavior through reconciliation with victims and community service. While not suitable for all cases, restorative justice has shown promise in reducing recidivism and aiding rehabilitation. International human rights standards advocate for the humane treatment of all prisoners, including those deemed dangerous. The Mandela Rules, adopted by the United Nations, provide guidelines for the treatment of prisoners, emphasizing rehabilitation and reintegration. Adherence to these standards ensures that even the most dangerous individuals are afforded basic human rights, reflecting a society's commitment to justice and humanity. The potential for dangerous prisoners to reoffend after release is a topic of constant debate. While some offenders demonstrate genuine remorse and rehabilitation, others continue to pose a significant threat to public safety. Governments and justice systems face the daunting task of determining which individuals are ready for reintegration and which ones remain a risk to society. One of the most high-profile cases of prisoner release in the past decade involved the case of Oscar Lopez Rivera, a Puerto Rican nationalist who was convicted of seditious conspiracy, among other charges. He was released in 2017 after serving 35 years of a 70-year sentence, sparking controversy and division among political groups. Some viewed his release as a necessary step toward healing, while others felt it was unjustified given the severity of his crimes. A particularly alarming case that shook both the legal system and the public was that of Israel Keyes, an American serial killer who committed several murders across the United States before being arrested in 2012. Although Keyes was not released during his lifetime, the public fears that such individuals, if they were to be released, would pose a severe threat to society. Keyes' meticulous planning of his crimes and his ability to evade capture for years only adds to the complexities surrounding his case. Another controversial case involved the release of the West Memphis Three, Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Misskelley, Jr., who had been convicted of the murders of 3 young boys in Arkansas in 1993. They spent almost 2 decades in prison before being released after new evidence emerged suggesting they were wrongfully convicted. Their case raised questions about the accuracy of the criminal justice system and the potential for innocent individuals to be imprisoned. The American system has seen an increasing trend in the early release of prisoners who were sentenced to long terms for nonviolent crimes, particularly those involved in drug-related offenses. These releases have sparked debate, with some arguing that the prison system is too harsh on those who do not present a threat to public safety, while others worry about the long-term effects of releasing individuals who have not been properly rehabilitated. The challenges in releasing dangerous prisoners are further compounded by the fact that not all prisoners have access to the same rehabilitation programs. Those incarcerated for violent crimes may be more resistant to change due to the nature of their offenses, while others may have the opportunity to engage in educational and therapeutic programs that increase their chances of successful reintegration. The case of Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, is one of the most infamous examples of an individual who continued to haunt society even after their conviction. Ramirez was a serial killer who terrorized Southern California in the 1980s and early 1990s, and his case brought to light the issues surrounding prisoners who may never be rehabilitated. Even in prison, Ramirez continued to garner attention and admiration from individuals outside the prison system, further complicating the discussions about dangerous prisoners being released. The debate over the death penalty and life imprisonment also intersects with discussions about prisoner release. Some advocate for the death penalty as a means of preventing the release of dangerous individuals who cannot be rehabilitated, while others argue that life imprisonment without parole should be a sufficient deterrent. The ongoing struggle to find a balance between punishment and rehabilitation plays a significant role in shaping policies surrounding the release of prisoners. In countries with less developed justice systems, the release of dangerous prisoners may be influenced by political factors, corruption, or the lack of resources to manage prison populations. These factors can result in prisoners being released before their sentence is complete, often to the detriment of public safety. The international community continues to pressure these countries to improve their prison systems and ensure that those who are released have genuinely been rehabilitated. The potential for prison reform has also become a focal point in discussions about prisoner release. Advocates for prison reform argue that many prisoners, especially those incarcerated for nonviolent crimes, could benefit from rehabilitation programs that help them reintegrate into society and become productive members. Reformers believe that this approach would reduce recidivism and ultimately benefit public safety. In recent years, the concept of second chances has gained traction as part of rehabilitation efforts for prisoners. Some organizations have been working to provide former inmates with the tools and support necessary to re-enter society. These initiatives focus on education, job training, and mental health care, aiming to reduce the likelihood of former prisoners re-offending and to help them lead fulfilling, law-abiding lives. Another controversial aspect of the prisoner release debate revolves around the families of victims. Many argue that the families of those who have been harmed should have a say in the decision to release prisoners who committed violent crimes. The emotional and psychological toll on these families is often overlooked in discussions about rehabilitation and the potential for prisoners to reintegrate successfully. The decision to release dangerous prisoners is often complicated by the lack of sufficient long-term data regarding the effectiveness of rehabilitation programs. While some prisoners show improvement during their time in prison, there is no guarantee that this progress will continue once they are released. The unpredictable nature of human behavior makes it difficult for authorities to confidently predict whether a released prisoner will reoffend. Another important factor to consider when releasing prisoners is the risk posed to vulnerable populations. Dangerous prisoners released into communities may prey on those who are less able to defend themselves, such as children, the elderly, and individuals with disabilities. The safety of these vulnerable groups must be a priority when determining whether a prisoner is ready to re-enter society. The psychological impact of being incarcerated for an extended period is often underestimated. Many prisoners experience significant mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and PTSD as a result of their time behind bars. While some prisoners are able to adapt and recover, others may face ongoing struggles that hinder their successful reintegration into society. The introduction of rehabilitation programs that focus on anger management, conflict resolution, and emotional regulation has shown promise in reducing the risk of reoffending. These programs aim to help prisoners address the underlying issues that led to their criminal behavior, equipping them with the tools they need to lead healthier, more productive lives once they are released. The role of parole boards in the release of dangerous prisoners cannot be overstated. Parole boards are tasked with evaluating whether a prisoner has sufficiently rehabilitated and is no longer a threat to society. However, their decisions are often based on subjective assessments, which can lead to inconsistency and the potential for errors in judgment. Another consideration in the release of dangerous prisoners is the concept of restorative justice. This approach focuses on repairing the harm done to victims and the community by involving the offender in the healing process. While restorative justice is not appropriate for all crimes, it has proven to be effective in certain cases, fostering accountability and allowing offenders to make amends for their actions. One of the most difficult aspects of releasing dangerous prisoners is the risk they pose to law enforcement officers. Officers must often deal with highly volatile individuals who have the potential to harm not only the general public but also the officers themselves. In some cases, prisoners released after serving long sentences may have a history of violent behavior toward authority figures, which complicates the decision to release them. Public safety is always the most significant concern when dangerous prisoners are being considered for release. While rehabilitation is essential, it is equally important to protect communities from individuals who have shown a pattern of violent behavior. Striking the right balance between rehabilitation and public safety remains one of the most pressing challenges for justice systems worldwide. There is a growing emphasis on developing alternatives to incarceration for low-risk offenders. Programs that focus on rehabilitation and community-based sentencing aim to reduce the need for lengthy prison terms, offering a more cost-effective and humane alternative to incarceration. These programs, however, may not be suitable for those convicted of serious and violent crimes. The release of prisoners is also influenced by the nature of the crime they committed. Some crimes, particularly those involving violence or severe harm to others, are perceived as unforgivable by the public. In these cases, the risk of reoffending is higher, and the social stigma attached to such crimes can make reintegration into society more difficult. Victim advocacy groups often play a critical role in the debates surrounding prisoner release. These organizations work tirelessly to ensure that the voices of victims are heard and that the concerns of survivors are taken into account. While these groups often advocate for harsher sentences and longer periods of incarceration, they also recognize the importance of rehabilitation and the possibility of second chances for some offenders. Prisoners who are released after serving long sentences often face significant challenges in adjusting to life outside of prison. Many struggle with finding employment, housing, and reintegrating into their communities. The stigma surrounding their criminal history can make it difficult to rebuild their lives, which can increase the likelihood of reoffending. The concept of tough-on-crime policies has gained popularity in some parts of the world, particularly in response to concerns about rising crime rates. These policies advocate for longer sentences and harsher punishment for criminals with the aim of deterring crime. However, such approaches have been criticized for focusing too much on punishment and not enough on rehabilitation. The future of prisoner release policies may depend on a combination of factors, including public opinion, advances in rehabilitation methods, and evolving perceptions of justice. As society continues to grapple with the complexities of crime and punishment, it is likely that debates over the release of dangerous prisoners will remain a contentious issue for years to come.